It is Tuesday, the 20th, January the 20th, I think. Having my morning coffee with my cranberry almond kind bar. I don't like to eat a lot in the morning. I'll eat something small, drink some coffee, have a New York breakfast, coffee and cigarettes. And then I'll eat about 5 o'clock p.m. And I got Jackson here. He thinks he's a parrot. He lives on my shoulder. He just stays on my shoulder most of the time. Don't you, buddy? When I go into Walmart, I'll put him right here. His little head pokes out. I'm still in Indiana. I'm getting a serious travel itch to drive hundreds of miles just to see Indiana fade behind me in the background. I'll probably be doing a story time soon. I've done basic intros of who I am, but I got a lot of stories to tell. A lot of things to share that whoever's out there watching this may or may not be interested in, but I have lived a life for sure. Several, in fact. I miss my best friend, Josh. He's 38 now, I think. I think he's 38, yeah. And we spent 20 years together. Most of the time we spent was in the same room. You would think after 10, 15 years straight of being in the same room with somebody, day in, month out, year in, year out, that you would just want to get away from that person. But you know what's weird? We never did. If I was in the kitchen cooking, he would be in the living room. If I was in the bedroom, he'd come back there and sit next to me. He'd be on his laptop, me on my laptop, gaming. I'm a diehard gamer, so is he. And, or if he's in the bedroom, I'm in the living room, I would go back in the bedroom and I would chill with him. But we just became each other's skin. I love that man so much. I was 36 when he was 18 when we first met. And we just spent the next 20 years together. Inseparable, just inseparable. Unfortunately, 4 years ago, he became addicted to meth. I didn't know until like 3 months ago that he was even smoking meth the last year of our relationship. I left him 3.5 years ago and moved out. That was really rough hearing that. And it just sucks, to see that happen to your best friend in the whole world. And not only that, but a family member of mine, somebody very close to me, is also addicted to meth. I remember back in the 80s, the worst we had, me and my friends, were just like smoking weed, kicking back some wild turkey on the country roads. That's what we did, Nobody was smoking meth or ODing from fentanyl or carfentanil or, it wasn't like that back in the 80s. And then the 90s came around and, pain pills were sort of on the scene, but not intensely. And then the next decade hit and crack was everywhere. Everybody was addicted to crack. And then opiates, the opioid and the opiate epidemic hit. And people were dropping off like flies and getting addicted to oxyzopanas, you name it, they were on it. And then in the last 10 years after the opiate epidemic hit, fentanyl popped onto the scene, and then everybody started ODing and dying from fentanyl. Out of the 12 people I hung with in the 80s, my crew, my posse from Charlestown, Indiana, a C-town crew, 8 of them are dead. 2 died last year only, and there's only a few of us left, which is sad. If alcohol didn't get them, the opiates did, and if that didn't get them, the fentanyl did. It's really sad. But yeah, several family members and or at least one, and my best friend are now addicted to meth, and it just sucks. I hate meth. I've never done meth. I will never do meth. I was addicted to Poppy Tea for 13 years straight. A cup in the morning, a cup at night. And that's why I have poppy pods tattooed on my forearm. I was known as the Poppy Queen. And it was a very hush-hush underground thing 16 years ago when I first discovered Poppy Pods, I had a migraine disorder. Every migraine I had lasted 3 days. And I got 2 to 3 of them per month. I just couldn't function. I was constantly in pain. I just constantly was in pain. So instead of getting jacked up and going to oxys and opanas and all that, like the doctor wanted to put me on, I told him that I wasn't interested and did my own research and found Poppy Pods online. And back then, you could still order them off of eBay before the DEA cracked down. It was like 16 years ago, like I said. And so I did that for 5 or 6 years, and then I found a source of seeds that I won't even describe because it's very, very secret, and I'm not giving my sources out so people can use it to try to get high. I used it for pain only. It was my medicine. I never used poppy seeds or poppy pods to get high. I did enjoy the nud the first year, I'm not gonna lie. But it mitigated my pain. It helped with my migraines, and I was able to get back into college after drinking my poppy tea. I started drinking it every day. Like I said, a small cup in the morning and a small cup in the evening, twice per day for 13 years. And I was able to get back in college, like I said. But not only that, it absolutely quieted down 100% of the head chatter. You know, like a hamster on a wheel running in your brain. That was completely asleep. Just completely asleep. The depression gone. The anxiety gone. I slept. My insomnia, my chronic insomnia that I've been hospitalized for 6 times in the past, gone. I had 12-hour sleeps easily. It literally fixed everything in my brain that was wrong with my brain. I had terrible OCD and ADHD as a child. But when I drank my poppy tea for those 13 years, it just checked off every single box that was wrong with my brain. And anything in excess is bad for you, you know, bad for us as humans. But things in moderation can be phenomenal. And for me, the poppy tea was phenomenal. I still have my source, my one source. I haven't bought any seeds in many years. I've been on Suboxone for 2 years. I take 8 milligrams a day, or I'm supposed to. I only take 4 milligrams a day. And I write all the other 50% because I'm not going to go into withdrawal when somebody decides to just cut me off overnight. You know, I don't like giving physicians, counselors, other people that kind of power over my physical health so that I could be dope sick or go into physical withdrawal within just 2 days of not having my Suboxone. So from 16 milligrams per day, I actually went down to 2 milligrams per day. But it wasn't the right amount. I needed a little more. So 4 milligrams for me per day is perfect. It's just what I need. But I do get a script of 8 milligrams per day. So I constantly keep a 50% surplus so that if I do run out, I'm not going to suffer. As I said in the other videos, I'm an addiction counselor and a mental health therapist. I had a fancy office, my degrees on my wall, 13 years of college, 4 degrees. I have a double master's in psychology and addiction counseling, a bachelor's in psychology, an associate's degree in behavioral sciences, and a CPC certification that was another year tacked on in substance abuse. So I've got, technically I have 5 pieces of paper. 3 of them are degrees. 1 of them is a CPC certification. I've got 4, not 5. But I had an office with my clients, you know, and that was great I did that for 7 months, and I really enjoyed it. I did all of the intakes, which took 2 hours. I had to ask 150 questions to people in complete withdrawal, dope sick, coming off of meth, they couldn't stay awake, you know, whatever. And my clinic that I worked at was a 28-day program. And we were dual diagnosis, which meant we treated comorbidity. And comorbidity, or the comorbid factor, is just a fancy way of saying you have mental illness and substance addiction. Sometimes people had one, sometimes people had both, but often they go hand in hand. And it can be difficult to differentiate and distinguish between what is a mental illness and what is the symptoms or the effects of a drug addiction. And for me, it was my job to do the intake, but I also diagnosed. So I would do questionnaires, they would fill out questionnaires, but I've got enough street experience in substance use and SUD, substance use disorder. We don't call it drug addiction anymore. We call it substance use disorder, SUD. And yes, there's a difference between substance use and substance abuse. But it was my job to actually diagnose my clients and determine what mental illness, if anything, they had. And then I would look on my chart and I would type in to their chart the specific codes of the diagnoses. And then the physician would write the scripts after I diagnosed them. Not only that, but I also did psychosocial evaluations, which took an hour. And then I had individual therapy with my clients, which was a whole nother thing that lasted an hour each. And not only that, but I was the only therapist in my 28-day program that taught 6 groups per week with all the clients in the whole facility in my one group 6 times per week. So I had a pretty heavy workload, but I traded that in to be a freelance addiction counselor and mental health professional out here on the streets and in parking lots, at parks, wherever. It's not hard, to spot like addicts on the street, especially homeless addicts. Like, takes one to know one. I'm not an addict and I'm not homeless. I live in my Kia Sorento LX 2012. My house has wheels, so I'm not houseless or homeless. I just prefer to live in a home that can move around from state to state. And I love to travel, Wherever I go, that's where I live. And life is good. But I would never, ever be okay with just waking up and being alone and being like, what am I going to do today for myself? I am so compelled. I'm so driven to do something for society, for other people, especially those without, the less fortunate, that don't have homes, that are addicted to things. I keep extra Suboxone on me, and I'm not going to record and upload to the world that I give homeless addicts who are dope sick my Suboxone. I'm not going to say that. But let me just say that my extra supply comes in handy, and I think about others who are dope sick. That's all I'm going to say about that. So make what you will out of that statement. But I'm not going to let them suffer. I'm not going to let them sit there if they run out of their Suboxone, or if they are slamming heroin, and they want to get clean, but they just don't know how to. They're not strong enough yet. They don't have the resources. They don't have insurance and can't go to rehab, whatever. Then yeah, I'll trade numbers with them, phone numbers, and first name basis, only to protect the confidentiality both ways. And I will tell them, if you need a ride to your appointment, if you're hungry, if you are dope sick, if you need a hammock and don't have a place to stay, and you just want to sleep in the woods, hammocks are $15, man. I pay for everything myself. I don't ask for donations. I don't do any of that. I do everything myself. However, at some point, like I said in one of my other videos, I may at some point make a GoFundMe and set a goal for the people that I help, because I'm buying all the food, all the tents, all the hammocks. I hand out 10s and 20s, whatever I can do to help the population and wherever I am, whatever state I'm in. At some point down the road, I'll probably do that, but that's not today. And I do not like asking other people for things. I'm the one helping people, It's not easy for me to ask for help, but there's a lot of people out there that would contribute, especially knowing that I'm a one-woman army, doing what I can to help the addicted population that are homeless. So that's another time. But anyway, I'm compelled and I'm driven to do something for other people. I just am constantly thinking about what can I do for somebody else, And I love other people that are like me, that want to give and help and do for other people. I don't like selfish people. I don't like selfishness. People that are stingy, greedy. I believe in God, and I believe that God is the ultimate storehouse, and that if we ask him for something, he'll give it to us, Ask and you shall receive, right? Knock and the door will be opened. So I just love people. And there's a lot of people out there that are hurting, that are suffering. And I do what I can to help. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I've got my window cracked, don't worry. I don't like smoking around Jackson. He's only 10 weeks old and he doesn't need all that cigarette smoke. So I'm going to roll my window down and keep my cigarette out the window. Again, I'll probably put some interesting shit up here sometime in the future. I might play my guitar, my acoustic electric, and sing. I'm a singer, songwriter, musician, addiction counselor, mental health therapist, published author, writer, lyricist, poet. I wear many hats. But I'll probably put some interesting stuff up sometime soon. This is just me yammering on about my life. And I'm just itching to drive again, but I have to stay in Indiana for another week for business. So I'm going to just jump off of here, and just wanted to update. And I'll make more videos later. Bye.